Happy History Month, y'all. And welcome to another episode of Creator Tea Talk, where we spill the tea on all things relating to the creator economy. I am Jayde Powell, your hostess, coming at you live from Atlanta, Georgia, where I can very thankfully say the sun is finally out and my seasonal depression is going away, finally. And today we're going to be discussing women in the creator economy. I'm really excited because I feel like I have some very talented ladies on this panel, all of whom I've been secretly, but not so secretly, standing during my time on the Briefcase app, which I call LinkedIn, as well as other social media platforms. But before I have my panelists introduce themselves, I want to give a shout out to today's episode sponsor, Sprout Social. When I was in the social media management era of my career, Sprout Social was like my go-to platform of choice with social media management. So it's really amazing to have them as a continued partner, now as a creator. And that said, I'll have Greg introduce himself and tell the people a little bit more about Sprout.
Absolutely. Hey, everyone. And I will keep this quick because I am so excited for this episode. I'm Greg Rukisky. I use he, him pronouns. I'm currently a social strategist at Sprout and was a longtime fan and customer before. We have a great social team at Sprout made up by a strategist, a social analyst, and all overseen by our fearless leader, director of social. I'm in Michigan. I've worked with so many brands, creators, and influencers, including some on this stage. Shout out to Jayde and Christina. And just continue to learn from powerful women like y'all in this fast-paced digital world. And I'm just so pumped to hear you all spill the tea. For those of you that don't know, Sprout Social is a social media publishing, scheduling, and reporting platform that gives teams the tools needed to not only elevate your social strategy, but to prove impact, enhance your workflows, all of that amazing thing that goes into social media management, so you can build insights-driven strategies that will take your brand to that next level. We offer employee advocacy, influencer creator solutions. So please, if you have any questions, reach out. But with that, I'm stepping down off this stage so y'all can spill some more tea.
Thank you so much, Greg. Like I said, me and Sprout Social go way back. So as always, I'm super happy to be collaborating with them again. Now I want to get everyone acquainted and have my lovely panelists introduce themselves. Ladies, please don't be afraid to brag here. Talk your shit. Let the people know what you're creating, what you're building, and also let us know where you're spilling from. Anybody want to go first?
I can go first. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for letting me join this panel today and spill the tea. Love to do that. My name is Brianne Fleming. As you can probably see from my LinkedIn tagline here, I love to talk about both marketing and pop culture. So that's really the basis for the types of content that I create. I have a weekly Twitter chat called Pop Chat where marketers come together to discuss trending topics. So I think tomorrow's questions are going to write themselves with all the Kate Gate going on and the photo editing and all of that tea being spilled. So I host Pop Chat every Friday. I also have a podcast with a similar premise called Making the Brand, which is again, marketing and trending topics, and also a newsletter. And I am coming at you from Jupiter, Florida, where the winter season is ending here. So it's getting kind of hot and miserable already. I can kind of go back to that Atlanta weather, Jayde. It sounds really appealing right now. But thanks for having me.
Okay, I'll popcorn it. I like the game of popcorn when we do these things. Bring it back from the old school days of childhood. My name is Tiffany Harden. I run an influencer marketing agency called Guild Creative Group. We are really a strategic creative partner for different brands, the likes of Hulu and Victoria's Secret and a bunch of other folks. And outside, I've been running that company for over 10 years now, and have produced a lot of different influencer campaigns, and have grown my company even in the last 3 years, 300%, and we're doing well. I also just from sitting in every seat in the creator economy, I started a tech startup called Represent, which deals with creator sustainability and supports creators closing the gap between information and access, and giving them, tech-enabled tools, but also premium networks so that they can really grow their business as entrepreneurs. And I'm calling in from LA. Although I'm based in Nashville, I happen to be calling in from LA. Popcorn Georgina.
Thank you, Tiffany. Hi, everyone. I'm Georgina. I've worked as an influencer marketer for a little over 15 years. Got my start as a creator, but quickly realized I didn't want to be in front of the screen, in front of the camera, that is, and worked brand side at an ad agency, tech, media, startup, you name it. And most recently for Amazon, leading One Medical's influencer program. I also work as a consultant for SMBs, run a course for a lot of smaller companies, and I'm calling in from ATL, where I can confirm the weather is beautiful. Popcorn, Christina.
Thank you. I feel like everybody has such really great backgrounds. So I am Christina. I've been a social media and community manager for 8 years, but I'm a millennial, so I feel like my entire life, we could just call it as it is, started out in the Zanga days, you know what I mean? So my whole background has been, I've had an experience with sort of being like the first social media manager for companies, mostly in the B2B SaaS space, for about 6 companies now. And the creator side of me is that my mom would probably tell a lot of people that I love being in front of camera. I think it's because of my self-deprecating humor that I really like to showcase it. And, Hollywood won't call me, so I guess I'll just have to keep pitching them. And hopefully someday somebody will come across my terrible videos and think it's something. That being said, I really do love how all the platforms have given people the ability to sort of share stories. That's always been my bread and butter anyway. And yeah, I'm excited to be part of this. And I am coming to you guys from Boston. And so the last person here is Kiana.
Thank you, Christina, and happy Women's History Month to all of our listeners. I am the founder and executive director of the American Influencer Council. We are a 501c6 not-for-profit trade association based in New York City. We will be celebrating our 4th year on Global Social Media Day, June 30th, which I'm super excited about. Prior to starting the council, I've been in this space for about 20 years. I started the social media departments at Saks Fifth Avenue and at the US Open. I'm a 2-time Shorty Award winner and 7-time finalist and a Webby nominee.
Period. Thank you, Kiana. I love how you slid that in there at the end, but thank you. Well, beautiful, everyone. Thank you so much for introducing yourselves. I'm excited to start this conversation. So let's dive right in. So I know many of you are very iconic women who have started their own brands and businesses and or have consulted for brands or businesses, which it was very intentional as I selected this panel. So for the people who are unaware or new to the creator economy space, what opportunities do you feel are there for women to grow their own brands or businesses or earn additional income in the creator economy? And anyone can take it.
I think a really exciting thing about influencer marketing and social media in general is that it is dominated on all of the big 5 platforms by women. Collaborator just released their 2024 influencer marketing white paper, and they found that 70% of women engage in paid sponsored content and are dominating the creator economy. So when I think about women having the ability to start their own business, influencer marketing is a great segue, whether you're full-time or part-time. There are so many different levels of creators. And the reason why I started the council was really to be a platform for women to really own being an American small business, because what creators do is indeed operating as a creatorpreneur. And I think it's super exciting because we've seen these women
Kiana, you're cutting out on the end there. You want to unmute yourself and try again?
Oh, where did I get cut off at? What
Right,
part?
right after creatorpreneur.
Oh, I said it's super exciting to see these women transform and redefine the future of work, because I think, during the pandemic, you had, so many companies not really understanding, what goes into the production of producing, a very elevated piece of content. But then during the pandemic, creators became, when production companies couldn't operate, creators really acted and filled that void. And we even see it with the SAG-AFTRA strike. Creators have been in more demand than ever before. And so when I think about, possibilities, what excites me about the creator economy is seeing these women redefine, work.
I mean, here. Here. I don't even remember the question at this point. I'm like, Kiana did that.
I was asking what opportunities are there for women in the creator economy when it comes to like growing your own business, entrepreneurship, brand building, any of those things.
Oh, boom, got it. So what's interesting about this is like, as an entrepreneur, I, similar to somebody else here, I started my career in the music business and on the talent management side, and then I moved into advertising and then started my own company. And I think what it just really depends on the person, but like for me, um, I'm kind of not falling, but I'm kind of introducing myself into the B2B space as a creator, and not because I have like the five top 10 tips to do whatever, but it really is a lead magnet for a lot of businesses to really grow their business and honestly grow the industry. And I think that I preach all the time the economics of trust, and influencer marketing at its core is about trust. And so, with women, if you even go back to the blogger days, like people used to be like, oh, that person's a mom blogger. And they didn't take them seriously. And, the company Village Marketing that was housing all of these quote unquote mom bloggers were getting paid big bucks to, really activate and mobilize that group of women. And we see that happening with the Stanley Cup craze. Like there's a direct correlation between when women get involved in business and profit. And back to Village Marketing, they were bought by WPP. And so there's still, that is definitely, and that still exists, no matter what level you put it on, whether it's you're doing it at an individual level to grow your own sales, or whether it's something that you're doing because your community needs your point of view and your voice. And it's easy to understand if you're growing trust within that community and you have your own receipts around what it means, especially I'm talking from a business owner perspective, but if you have your own receipts about what you've gone through and what that meant to you, and you can support somebody else coming up, I mean, all that sounds like to me is a great opportunity and some extra change, which is fabulous.
I
Go ahead.
love that. I love that Zanga and mom blogging has already come up in in the first few minutes here. And I think what's special about the creator economy is that, particularly for women, like we don't have to wait for someone to see us. We can go ahead and take matters into our own hands and create a digital product, create a blog, start something that you can publish immediately. It'll take some time to draw some traffic to that, but I know all of us have something that we're the go-to person for, that our friends and family already see us as an expert in. And with the creator economy, we can overnight create something that adds value in that expertise. And, you're empowered right now to create something to sell, which I think is really powerful.
I agree 100%. And to almost popcorn on that, it comes down to leveraging your expertise in a way, or kind of in the form that you like best, to support those who can benefit from it. And that can be in the form of a newsletter if you love to write. an Instagram broadcast channel, a course. But, using that expertise and putting it into some form of a resource that you can share, even if you start unpaid. I don't know, Jade, was this Tea Talk, was it always sponsored? I feel like that's a great example.
Yeah, it was not. When Tiffany was mentioning like the sponsorship opportunity, that was the first thing I thought of. I was like, yeah, because I'm getting paid by B2B brands. You're absolutely right.
Get that bag always.
I think a lot of this too is also like when I think about my own journey and stuff, it's also about like having control of your own sense of direction in a way, because I find that like especially nowadays, right, you see all the layoffs happening, and then like there are so many things that are just like outside of your natural control, that being a creator and having the opportunity to sort of like bring that work to life in a way that is showing, your ability to tell a story, sell a product, whatever it may be, like you're totally in control of that with how hard you work, what you're putting out there, like all of these things. And so I don't know, I just think, all those times before where it's like you, instead of being, I was like, this is the thing I always say all the time. I was like, I worked so hard for other people. Why would I not work this hard to build myself? And it's paid off. So yeah.
And I think, just jumping in here, what a lot of people, a big part of the work that we do at the American Influencer Council is destigmatizing the business of influencing. I think that media can misrepresent the revenue potential to enter into the creator economy. And I think it's really important for I think maybe Christina talked about trust and transparency on what it takes to build a meaningful book of business to be able to go full time and work within the creator economy. Just like you said, Jade, your podcast wasn't funded. When you get into this space, you have to build a reputation. You need to show and showcase your integrity, building up that business acumen. And that takes time. It's for most people in the creator economy, it's not overnight success. And I think it's really important to champion the diversity and the inclusive nature of the people powering the creator economy, because it's the creator middle class, that nano to mid-tier, that really make up the lion's share of our industry. They're not the 1 or 2% of our trade who are mega influencers generating 6 and 7 figure deals. So it's really important for me about talking with brand marketers that they understand the very unique nature of each individual business, and to treat that person very individually when it comes to, say, rates and opportunities.
I love that. Tiffany, one thing I want to tap into is the fact that you were talking about how the language around influencer or mom blogger has kind of changed. We saw before how mom bloggers may have been like dismissed, or that role or job title may have seen as a negative. And Kiana, you just mentioned how your work at AIC is kind of destigmatizing the work of influencer. And it's interesting to me because I remember I was reading this stat. I was working on a strategy deck, kind of looking up demo for Gen Z. And it said that 90% of Gen Z would consider being an influencer or creator full time if they could. So why do you think that has kind of changed? Like, what's causing that shift in culture now?
I think that, you had with the rise of TikTok, this instant influencer. And so you have a lot of young people seeing the power to grow, a large community for 1 or 2 viral posts. So I'm sure everyone on this panel also seen that in 2020, all of a sudden, a creator who had maybe 2,000 TikTok followers, all of a sudden from 1 viral post is at, 500,000 followers. That's very enticing to a brand, right? That gives that individual the ability to start really monetizing in a way where they can work regularly. And so because of that instant influencer, moment for us. I think that people think that this is a get rich quick type of work, and it's not, because when it comes to generating, revenue that allows you to have a livable wage, and we talk a lot about this at the AIC, we started a Creator Wealth Summit just to educate creators on, how do you get to make a livable wage, because most people working in our trade, unfortunately, are not. And so then when you hear stats like influencer from eMarketer, like influencer marketing is worth, a little over $5 billion. But then how does that trickle down to the creator? Where is this money being distributed? Is it still going to that 1-2% of our trade? And so I think it's super important to educate students and young people about what it takes to make it long time. We talk a lot about longevity and thinking about, career creating or professional influencing as this is a profession, because you just don't want people coming in and out of this space, because it dilutes our trade, and it also dilutes, fostering an environment of lifelong learning, because we keep wanting to build up the next generation of creators. And how do we do that? We have to have, an ecosystem that is supporting these young people to create something that has, tenure.
I'm so glad you spoke on that, because that's exactly what I've picked up in the white space in this business, and why I'm launching Represent and doing product fit focus groups right after this. But Kiana, you mentioned the aspect of, sorry if it's a little loud, but you mentioned the aspect of what it means to have like the middle class, right, and where that money is going, right? And I think sometimes what we end up missing when we hear these big stats is like that money is going to the platforms. That money is going to the agencies. That's not money in the bag for influencers. It's like it is Unilever paid Endemol, they're like XYZ, 1,000 heads, XYZ. And so it's like trust and believe there are businesses making that money, but that value is not, to your point, being trickled down into the creator pocket, the middle class of the creators. And when we look at the language around what started as mommy bloggers, and what was it like, especially in New York, there's a whole period around like millennial hipsters and this and that. We're showing our age here, but like that whole period, there were people like me that were trying to convince brands that there is something here. And I remember, I worked with Bud Light Platinum back in the day, and Kendrick Lamar was just coming out, and I had did a deal with Kendrick Lamar to promote Bud Light Platinum. And that's something he would never, ever, ever do today. Okay. But it was back when he was coming up. So like you have these marketers that are at that time that were trying to convince brands that influencer marketing is the way to go. But now you have brands that are trying to work with influencers at a faster clip without a lot of discernment around, what they're actually doing. I call it warehouse influencer marketing, where it's like you have this platform that's like, we have 10 billion influencers, and you just got to click, the filters and then send off your affiliate code, and bada bing, bada boom, 10 million impressions. That's not necessarily the work that I do, but it's happening every day. It's happening every day, and it's affecting, like Kiana said, the middle class influencer marketing, individual. And I feel like if there's an opportunity to give a little bit more like light to the economy and like who actually gets the bulk of that money, you'll find that it's brands and advertising agencies and platforms.
I love that. One of the things I want to talk about, because you mentioned one of my favorite topics, which is money, Tiffany. So we talked a little bit about monetization earlier, which I know a lot of people who are interested in becoming a influencer or creator talk about. That's kind of like one of the first things they think of. They think of it as a career opportunity, a way to either make side money or a way to pay their bills full time. So I was reading an article in Business Insider, and they said that men actually make an average of 30% more per post than women. And then, we talked about this earlier on, but we know the creator economy space is a woman dominated space. So knowing that, why do you feel like this is still the case? Like, we've seen it across other industries. What do you think is the reason for that pay gap?
I can speak a little bit to that. And I think it's similar to other issues in the world, and this country in particular. It's a systemic issue, like starting from when we were very young in school, education, even the career guidance that we were given as young kids. But then it travels all the way to hiring, promotions, how we're perceived when we're negotiating. And I think until those systems are broken down and rebuilt, we're only seeing incremental change. I think the transparency in salary, now that we're seeing beginning in New York, and now across the nation, is fantastic. I mean, I hope everyone is leveraging that and going for that max. If you don't ask, you're not going to get it. But I think that's probably, my first thought.
And to piggyback off of that, actually, because I've also been on the other side, you brought up a really good point about the whole systemic belief system, because I feel like girls in particular, have always been taught to sort of like portray themselves in a way that's likable. And whereas boys and men were always like, no, you just go do the thing and get it, like get from point A to point B. However you need to achieve, that's all you got to do, And I've been on the other side of the creator, where I've worked with creators, and I've seen how women themselves, when you ask for their rates, like you can have two creators, one having, they both have the same amount of followers, one being a male, one being a female. The female will always ask for less than what the male does. And from my side, as from the brand, I always try to like equal it. If the girl's going a little too low, I try to give it to, but I often think like, how many brands out there don't do this? Where I feel like, and I hear this a lot, and especially because I listen to Sophia Bush a lot, where she was like, the audacity of men sometimes, and that they just were built to sort of like ask for what they want, and they think in their head, like, this is what I deserve. And I feel like we need to encourage women to do the same thing. And if there's transparency, there's also things like we could have those conversations. And I think on the opposite side, if people are working on the brand perspective, like kind of do the due diligence and sort of help a girl out.
We need to be better about the language that we use and being more direct about the value that we provide, and being more confident to share that and willing to ask for those higher rates. So that's personally something that I have worked on when trying to negotiate, is coming to the table, knowing what I offer and knowing how to communicate it, and not really including some of that filler language and things that waters it down for that likability.
I think it's interesting to look at, like the Forbes top creator, the highest paid creators in our space that comes out. I think it's in its third year. And the top 4 earning creators are all men. And so I think when you really understand like the dynamics of where big funding comes in, it doesn't necessarily come to, say, lifestyle or fashion creators, or the beauty does kind of is competitive, but like gaming, business, finance, these topics that women aren't necessarily dominating in the same way. And so, or, you know, they're sort of like Mr. Beast, who's at the top of this list. You know, he's doing a lot of experimental type of content. And you just don't have women engaging in those same type of activities. I do think there are inherent biases that mimic society. And so women are also just dealing with the societal layers. You know, I always say we need to elevate women in every capacity, and that's, you know, education, healthcare, mental health, public policy. And so that has to also happen in the influencer marketing space. Is how are we supporting women to grow a business, to have, you know, to really stake claim and have a mentality that they are an American small business owner. You have the SBA as an example, and a lot of creators, the Small Business Administration, and creators just don't think of themselves as a small business. So it's also transforming mentality, because when you have mentality of ownership, we talk a lot about at the AIC being a builder. You're building a book of business. You're building a community. It's not just creating content. So I think that's where, you know, from the brand side, a lot of, you know, mentorship. I think there's also a lot of female marketers, and opening the door, just like Christina said, you know, helping decide rates. I've contracted influencers for, you know, up to 6 figures to, you know, $500 a post. And that's based on so many different things. And it's how do we educate people on, you know, what a brand is looking for? How do you set yourself apart? I tell creators all the time, make sure you're looking at lists of the top earning companies that you want to work for. Understand what their marketing budget is, because this is all public information. When you're informed, you're empowered.
So obviously, education really seems to be the thing that is connecting creators or potential creators and influencers to getting the opportunities that they want, especially when it comes to asking more money. And I feel like, you know, unless they have that knowledge or understanding on how to ask for more, what negotiation looks like, they won't really get what they want, what I call standing on business. So to you guys, what are some creator influencer platforms or tools that are available for women who want resources on pay transparency, or how to establish their rates, how to negotiate with brands, or even how to market or brand themselves?
I'd love to shout out a membership community I actually just discovered last week and was really impressed. It's called Social Suite, SOUL, Social Suite. And it's a women-led membership just for creators that has tons of resources about pitching. It has all kinds of templates. They even do live events where everyone is heads down sending out pitches. They have an entire database of contacts at different brands. There's no gatekeeping. Everyone kind of collaborates. If you have a contact at a brand that should be added, people add it. So like I said, I just discovered it last week. Again, it's called Social Suite, SOUL, and I think it offers a lot of what we're discussing here and really fills a need. Looking forward to hearing what everyone else has to say about this too.
Oh, I just went and looked at it because it looked fantastic. That's a really awesome it's a really awesome resource. One of the other resources I use, and it's interesting because, you know, the company that I'm coming out with will have a little bit of this, but there is such the root of this too, because someone mentioned that this is systemic, and it truly is. And a big part of what I want to bring to this space is networks, and, you know, premium networks, and you know, outside of that, but from an entrepreneur side. So if you are someone in this business that maybe isn't a creator but is a business person, and you're sending out invoices and pitches and things like that, you know, you may want to take a look at Wethos, WETHOS.co. They are a woman-led company, and they came from the advertising business, and they have a really great suite of tools to support you in your business. So for those of you that are maybe in representation or in advertising, or a creative agency that's working with influencers, this could be a really good. That could be a really good source for you to find different templates to work with, different people to work with, and when you need to expand your team.
I'm going to tout the American Influencer Council's free resource hub that has every single topic that pertains to a creator business, and it's curated monthly. And from financial capability to copyrights, there's absolutely everything in our hub. And I also want to tout Business Insider. Their creator economy reporters are doing a phenomenal job to curate pitch decks from top creators who have leveraged those decks to secure brand campaigns. They give a lot of great information. Creators like breaking down, I'm making X amount of money and this is how I'm doing it. I find that it's worth the annual subscription fee because the intel from Insider is just superb. And those will be my resources.
Kiana, would you mind actually repeating that second one? I missed what you said.
Oh, Business Insider. Business Insider has so many phenomenal articles where they've curated the pitch decks for the top earning creators. And you can download the deck. You can see how a creator is, marketing themselves. What are the basic fundamentals that should go in your media kit? They have articles from from mid-tier creator to macro creator, the journey of how they started to earn. And I just find that the articles have such richness. If I was in my early journey and I wasn't sure what to include and what not to include, I often find creators include too much information that can impact what their rates are. And so having a good wheelhouse to understand, what is it? How many pages should you have? What are those pages? What are the most important pages? Are so important because it starts with your media kit. That's the first thing most brands ask for.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I want to speak to another platform. It's completely free for creators. It's run by, I think her name is Lindsay, and it's FYPM. And it stands for FU, pay me. And the website is fypm.vip. And it's an incredible resource for creators. Basically, creators share about exactly what brands pay them and for what deliverables. And they actually rate each brand and each partnership. And I think it's just fantastic. And I think now there are actually capabilities so that creators can rate agencies. And there's even logins now for managers. So I think she has built her entire career. She started as a creator on this transparency. And I think it's a great free resource because it's really hard for me to justify a creator who's already kind of struggling and being underpaid having to pay for something like this. So I love that she charges the brands because they want to know, do creators like working with us?
Yeah, and Clara for Creators is also very similar to FU Payme. And I would shout out that website as well. They do a great job of curating rates, and their whole focus also is transparency. And you also have #PayMe, which is an influencer rate calculator, and that would be another great resource.
One thing I was also going to add, if you guys aren't already following Jessie Grossman, she's actually been a panelist on Creator Tea Talk before. She runs the Women in Influencer Marketing community. It's like one of the top networking and educational communities for women in influencer marketing. And I do believe it's a membership-based community, but I've seen a lot of testimonials and people talking about it, especially through the partnerships she's done. So if you haven't given her a follow, you definitely should. She's constantly posting resources on her personal page and as well through her Women in Influencer Marketing brand as well. All right, y'all. So I think we have about 10 to 12 minutes for questions. So I want to open up the conversation to anyone from the audience who has questions or any additional insights they want to share. So if you do, just raise your hands and I'll pull you up to the mic. And if no one does have any questions, I'll just go back to asking the panelists questions. So I'll give a little bit of time for that. Hi, Shamaya. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. It's good to be in the room again. So my question is about, I guess it's like a debate in the creator community right now, but niching down. So I've heard from some sources that niching down is the only way to grow, and I've heard from other people that niching down stifles you. So is there a consensus on that, or do you think it's like a person-to-person basis? I'd love your insight.
I can speak to that just from my own personal experience. Very early on in trying to establish my personal brand and kind of carve out this niche of marketing and pop culture and that intersection that I really wanted to be known for, I felt it was very important to almost exclusively talk about that. I thought a lot about more about what I didn't post versus what I did post. And I felt like really sticking to that path was important in the beginning to start to become known for that specific thing. I like to say you become known for what you own. And if you don't really own it in the beginning, people don't know what your expertise is. So I think you get to a certain point, though, when you maybe have established yourself as an expert in that niche and you can start to diversify. So that's just kind of been my personal experience. Now I let everything fly when I'm posting and creating content. I still would say I primarily talk about pop culture because that's what I want to be known for the most. But I think there's different phases and stages. In the beginning, it's important to stay the course and then diversify later, in my opinion. I hope that's helpful.
I definitely agree. However, I think it's important, number one, to lean into your expertise. And that, as we know, won't only be just one thing. I know when I started as a lifestyle creator because I had multiple interests and multiple strengths. And I was able to secure partnerships with everyone from a beauty brand to fashion to auto brands. And I enjoyed that. But I think it's also important to put ourselves in the shoes of a creator. When I'm looking at some of my favorite creators, Melissa's wardrobe, for example, I'm not just wanting to know what she's wearing. I want to know everything. Like, her house is beautiful and she cleans it like very thoroughly. I'm like, what does she use to get her sheets that white? What is she eating when she's going to Mark M&S? Like, think about, like, you wonder certain things about certain creators. So, people want that inside look beyond just what you're eating or just what you're wearing. So just keeping that in mind as well.
You brought up a really great point. When I was younger, one of my mentors, his name is Marcus Collins. He has a book called For the Culture. And when I was younger, I was working for him, and he told me, he's like, Tiffany, you gotta know what your point of view is. And I thought that was really interesting because what he was really saying was, when you have a point of view on something, that means you have, like all of us on this call, we have a point of view on influencer marketing, right? But like, whatever you're doing, making sure that you have a point of view on that thing. So even if it is, ooh, sorry guys, even if it is auto, even if it is a smoothie or whatever your main thing, your main point of view is, your main expertise on that thing is, it can show up and be expressed in different ways, but you have a point of view. And I think that's what people keep coming back to, creators for, and I think that's the thing that distinguishes good to great. And I think is the thing that distinguishes We could use her for this, or we can use a specialist for this. But it is, I think it will always be a quote age old debate, because I think that it's of the time. But I think in this day and age, like, we are looking for, we're looking for the curators. We're looking for somebody to say, like, when we're talking about soul music, think about this. When we're talking about fashion, think about this. Like, it really does support us. But you can catch, like, if you have a specialized view, great. But then you can also catch people, like Georgina was saying. She could still catch people on different aspects of her home, even though she's talking specifically about something else that she's an expert on. So I would just think about it like that.
And I'm going to quickly piggyback on Tiffany. I think, coming from the brand side and, really contracting influencers for the majority of my career, you're always looking to fill a specific type of customer segment. When I work with brands, or coming from retail, you have, a brand is looking for a specific type of individual to market to their customer. So what is your subject matter expertise? I would say to creators in their early journey, work towards being an SME, where you're producing content daily on a specific subject matter that you are now the expert on. And that's going to really help cut through the noise. We are in a very saturated market. There are millions of creators, 2 million professional influencers who are doing this at a full-time capacity. So when you think about lists like from Linktree, where there's 200 million people who consider themselves a creator, how do you distinguish and how do you have a point of difference? That's going to come across by nichifying. And when I talk to talent agents, they're always looking to add people on a roster who have a community that trust them for a specific topic, because then you can sort of think when you get to a certain stage in your career, how do I develop my brand into products and services? Because that's where the money comes. It's about getting off of the platforms and building a business. And so when you have that really singular point of view that no one can sort of penetrate, you stand out.
Thanks, everyone. Maya, I hope that you got your questions answered.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you all.
All right, so next we have Charmaine, and I think this will be our last question.
Thank you. Someone earlier on at the very top of the episode mentioned being behind the camera, and I was looking to see if you guys could speak on when you don't necessarily feel like being front face of something and you're like, I feel like I'm thriving behind the camera, and your perspectives on that. Thank you.
I can take it if no one wants to go. Jordan, I saw you mute, so go ahead.
Oh, no, I think I made that comment where I started as a creator and I was like, you know what? I want to work behind the scenes instead of in front of the camera. But just because I felt like I could have more of an impact that way, whereas a lot of other people can have just as much of an impact in front of the camera. But I think there's still a way that you're able to create change, to share and connect with people. So I originally started through writing, but now I also like podcasting because I'm okay with my voice. I hate my voice. Everyone does. But it's still a way to communicate and share about things that are important to you. So I think it really comes down to, we've seen a resurgence of, I shouldn't say resurgence, just this whole new movement of faceless accounts, especially on YouTube, and making money that way. I think lean into what you're most comfortable with. There are so many days, like even when I was shooting campaigns, I'm like, oh my God, I got to get my face together. I got to get my hair together. Sometimes it's just too much. So listen to yourself and really lean into, we have so many options and mediums. And, whether it be writing, blogs are back, so I'll leave it there though, so someone else can contribute.
Oh, Tiffany, did you want to go?
Girl, I was going to call you out. So there.
No. I was just to go off of that. Because I've had experience with this where I also did not want to be in front of the camera. I was also very much the type of person who prefers writing, and actually probably more like memology than anything else. But I do think that we should often think more about like the message before the format anyhow, because at the end of the day, if what it is that you're trying to convey anyway, it doesn't matter how you're people are gonna be able to feel that authenticity however you want to portray it. So I think there is pressure when people think creator that all of a sudden you're like making a TikTok video or any of that sort, but it's not. You can really create in so many different ways. And that's the great thing about our industry, right? Is that we could really get creatively invigorating work done.
That's amazing. I was going to kind of tackle that from the perspective of, I run an agency, a creative agency that specializes in influencer marketing. And so I'm hiring talent specialists, and I'm hiring sometimes production companies as we create, produce content for brands. And so to the point that there's room for everybody, that's so true, and that's so real. And I mentioned this before, but I've managed talent, I've contracted talent, support, mentor, create, and all that good stuff, coach. But I think that if your interest in the space is on the business side of things, that is where you are primed for success, because it's very rare, in my opinion, for there to be people who understand what it is to be a creative, but then be a creative professional, a professional that operates in that space. And that means you are likely, a little bit more detailed. You probably like rows and columns, as my friend tells me I do. And maybe there's an operationalization of how creators continue to grow and be successful, that if you're a part of that space, that's really significant. And I think that there's a way for you. I know you didn't mention this, but if you could speak on what your jam is, there's likely Charmaine, if you could tell, I'm just curious, and you can tell me later if you want to, but if you're interested in more on representation side, if you're interested in more of the production side or the operation side, there are places and spaces for you in this business, period.
Charmaine, I noticed in your kind of your LinkedIn tag that you have cannabis in there, which is very much my bread and butter. Obviously, you know this. So if you want to talk about cannabis content creation, feel free to slide in my DMs. I know Tiffany can talk to you more so on the influencer side as well. But thank you so much for your question. Everyone, we are unfortunately out of time for today's episode. I feel like these conversations always go so quickly, but they're so rewarding. But I wanted to thank everyone who joined in for tea time. It's always wonderful in this space. It literally feels like community. But I especially want to shout out to the panelists for participating in this convo. It was much needed, and I'm so glad that I could have you all here. Additionally, I want to give a shout out again to Sprout Social for sponsoring this episode. Thank you, Greg, and the team for partnering with me once more. And finally, if you are looking for a replay of this episode or other episodes, they will be published on creatorteatalk.com early next week. And there you can also subscribe to the Loose Leaf newsletter where I send updates about new episodes. Finally, the next episode will be later this month, so make sure you're subscribed so you know when it drops. And thank you all again for coming, and I hope you have a great rest of the week and a happy, happy Women's History Month.